Welcome to Open BXRX Tuesday on BronxNet. I'm your host, Sonyi Lopez, and I'd like to invite you to get social with us at BronxNet TV on Instagram and Twitter, and BronxNet Community Television on Facebook. Pride Month continues to be a celebration of our LGBTQ plus community. And as an LGBTQ plus healthcare equality leader, Montefiore provides leading edge care to the community. And one doctor is raising awareness about important terms to know, understand, and use appropriately when interacting with the LGBTQ plus community. Joining us now to share more is Dr. Lauren T. Roth, Assistant Professor of Pediatrics at Montefiore. Welcome, Doctor. Thank you so much for joining us today.
Hi, thank you so much for having me. So my name is Lauren Roth, and my pronouns are she and her. I'm a general pediatrician at a Montefiore clinic called the Comprehensive Family Care Center. I'm also an assistant professor at Albert Einstein College of Medicine, and I co-chair the LGBTQ Special Interest Group of the Academic Pediatric Association, which is a national group dedicated to increasing education about pediatric LGBTQ health for current and future pediatricians. My brother's transgender, so I've learned a lot about the trans experience on a personal level, and I spent the last 5 years teaching students, residents, and faculty about child and adolescent LGBTQ health.
Thank you so much for sharing, Doctor. And we're so happy to have you serving our LGBTQ plus community here in the Bronx in particular. So thank you for your work. So first, I'd like to learn about Montefiore's healthcare equality designation and the importance of leading an LGBTQ plus inclusion.
So every year, the Human Rights Campaign recognizes healthcare facilities that are dedicated to LGBTQ inclusion of their patients and employees. Montefiore has been designated a leader in healthcare equality for the past 5 years for its excellence in inclusive patient care, community engagement, staff training, and overall commitment to LGBTQ health awareness and inclusion. It's so important for hospital systems to have inclusive policies and staff training to make sure our patients feel it's a safe space for them to be honest about who they are and receive the healthcare they deserve.
Absolutely agree. And what are some of the services that are available to our LGBTQ plus community at Montefiore? I hear there's also a trans wellness center. Can you share more about that as well, Doctor?
Of course. The Trans Wellness Centers at Montefiore is actually a new name for a group of doctors, social workers, and other staff who for years have been providing safe and inclusive care for transgender and non-binary patients in the Bronx. It's directed by Dr. Robert Beal with the help of Montefiore's amazing transgender health specialist, Octavia Lewis, who is a woman of transgender experience and who provides such an important perspective for how we can best care for our patients. Our services at Montefiore range from primary care for children and adults, mental health care, reproductive health, gender-affirming care, which can include puberty blockers, hormone therapy, and we have a wide range of surgeries and other treatment options that are tailored to the transgender and non-binary community.
Such good information to share with our community, especially, our transgender community who often is not included in the healthcare communication or conversation. It's really hard to access a lot of these services that are so necessary to our community.
Mm-hmm.
So, Doctor, you have been raising awareness about important gender terms. Can you help walk us through these terms and what they mean?
Absolutely. So I've used the term transgender already. Someone who is transgender identifies as a gender that's different from the sex that a doctor assigned them at birth. When we talk about gender identity, we mean how a person describes their internal and personal sense of what their gender is. Sometimes it matches the chromosomes and the genitals that they were born with, but sometimes it doesn't. And gender expression is how we express ourselves on the outside. So how we dress, how we act, what names and what pronouns we use. There's also a term non-binary, which means just someone who doesn't necessarily identify with the categories of woman or man. They may identify as both, as neither, or somewhere in between on that gender spectrum. And when we talk about younger children, we often use the term gender expansive. These children may not necessarily follow the social norms of gender. For example, a child who was assigned male at birth, who likes to play with dolls and do ballet. It doesn't mean they're transgender. They're just exploring what gender means to them, and often at a really early age. I really want to emphasize the language we use is so important, especially as children get older. Puberty can be a really difficult time, especially when kids start to develop sexual characteristics that may not necessarily match how they feel inside, and that can be incredibly distressing for them.
Thank you, Doctor, for breaking that down. I think it's important to have this conversation and to break down these terms, especially when it comes to interacting with our youth. And, cross-generationally, some people may not understand the terms or, know what they mean or how to use them. So it's important to break these down, and we appreciate you joining us to help us out with that. So I wanted to discuss some challenges, common challenges that our LGBTQ plus youth face, whether that be in school, workplace, et cetera. Doctor, if you can just share some of those challenges challenges with us?
Of course. This is always a hard topic for me because the statistics are so upsetting. And I really think it's important to focus on the positives of the LGBTQ plus community. But of course, we need to highlight why it's so critical to be supportive of our LGBTQ youth. They have higher rates of depression, anxiety, substance abuse, bullying, weapon use, intimate partner violence. 40% of LGBTQ plus youth have attempted suicide. And one of the greatest concerns is homelessness. Kids can be kicked out of the home, rejected from their family, or experience physical or sexual abuse at home. But I want to talk about resiliency because these kids are also so strong and brave and resilient. And when they are supported by their friends and their family and influential adults like teachers and doctors, they really thrive.
Right. And I can't believe I had to ask about this, but just about humanizing the transgender community as well, Doctor, if you can just share, how we can take those steps as a community to just include our, LGBTQ plus, especially transgender community in the community.
Yeah, I think the word you said, normalize, like this is a normal thing. And we have to understand that gender is on a spectrum. There's not just men and women. There is a spectrum of different levels of, masculinity and femininity. And we just need to support and respect all of those people, anyone you encounter.
Doctor, I know you mentioned that your brother is transgender. How did you get into this field? And can you share a little bit about, that journey with your brother and your family?
Yeah, absolutely. So during my residency training, actually, I was training to be a pediatrician. My brother was in his first year at college, and he came back over winter break and sat down my family. I grew up with a sister and said, you know what, I'm transgender, I'm a guy. And, he had been suffering for so many years and was really depressed. And, we all just felt guilty. I really felt like, how did we miss something like this? Why didn't we ask earlier? Why did he have to live until 21 in the gender that he didn't identify with? And, he was really lucky because my family was so supportive. But this really kind of pushed me to say, why aren't we talking to other doctors and teachers and other people that really influence these kids and say, ask the right questions, be supportive of them. So that maybe my brother would have been able to come out earlier on in life and gone through the transition earlier.
Wow. Thank you so much for sharing that personal anecdote, Doctor. And that's something that I wanted to ask about as well. How can adults and family members or friends engage in supportive conversations with our youth? Can you share some steps and tips that may be helpful to us?
Of course, this is my favorite topic because I think there's so many ways adults can be supportive. And I think we really have to make an effort to support our kids. So it honestly starts at birth or even before. I really think we need to try to stop making everything pink and blue, avoid these huge gender reveal parties. It's okay to be excited when you find out your baby is a specific sex. People have dreams about what they want their families to be. But it's really important not to push all those expectations on your child. Toddlers start to notice physical differences and develop gender identity as early as 18 months to 2 years. They might begin talking about gender, playing dress up, having these established gender roles as early as age 3 or 4. Right. And, if your child was assigned male at birth and one day they tell you, I want to wear a pink sparkly dress. Instead of saying what a lot of people say, boys don't wear dresses, girls do. Saying something like, tell me more about why you want to wear a dress today. Be open and curious and just start the conversation. And I really think having open conversations like that and just asking questions allows your child to share a little bit about themselves. And it shows that you support them and it gives them the space to explore who they are. It's really important as kids are growing up to provide them options of toys that might include classically masculine or feminine toys. Just give them everything and let them play with what they want. Read books that don't show stereotypical gender roles, like include stay-at-home dads or female firefighters or male nurses, and then include same-sex parents or gender diverse protagonists. I think it's so important to just give exposure to all different kinds of people. And as kids get older, it's okay to just ask them, describe what your gender is, or something as simple as, when I fill out your school form this year, what do you want me to put for gender? And leave it open-ended and let them answer. I haven't mentioned a lot about sexual orientation, but I really want to emphasize that who someone is attracted to is completely separate from their gender identity. It's really important not to make assumptions, right? Don't say things like, do you have a boyfriend? Because if they actually like girls or they're bisexual, it might give them the impression that you might not support them if they did come out to you. You can ask in a broader way, like, are you attracted to boys, girls, both, neither? You might not necessarily get an honest answer right away, but you open up that discussion and it doesn't put the burden on them coming out to you. It shows that you're interested and you support them no matter what. Another thing I would say is just pay attention to what you say around children. Like if you're watching a TV show about a gay couple or watching the news about transgender kids playing sports, just know that your kids are always listening. And when you say supportive things, it can make a huge difference. Like when you're watching that TV show, say how great that gay couple is, or that trans kids should play whatever sport they're comfortable with. So that really has a huge impact on how your child views the rest of the world. And it might give them the confidence and security they need to be honest with you about who they are. And my best advice is just to be supportive no matter who they are and who they love.
Great. Thank you so much, Dr. Roth. And the main theme here is, creating that safe space for our youth just to feel supported and feel included in these conversations. So thank you for that. So Montefiore is celebrating Pride Month and beyond Pride Month, still providing services to our LGBTQ plus community. But I want to take this moment to just share that Montefiore is having a 2021 virtual Pride. So can you just share how viewers can stay in touch and find out more about these upcoming events?
Of course. So every year, cities around the globe celebrate Pride Month in June. In 2016, Montefiore was actually the first healthcare system ever to have a float at the New York City Pride Parade. So Montefiore has had a huge part in Pride for years. And this year, we'll have a strong presence. It will be at the virtual march on June 27th. All the details haven't been released yet, but you can follow our Twitter at Montefiore New York City. And the other Twitter account I would just mention is Trans Wellness Centers at Montefiore, because we talked about that a little today.
Got it. Thank you so much, Dr. Roth, for joining us, and happy Pride to you and to Montefiore.
Thank you so much for having me.
Thank you. We'll be right back here on Open BXRX Tuesday.